Today's I can statement is I can compare decimals. We're going to be looking at the symbols that we use when solving problems that require us to compare numbers. So we want to identify if they're greater than, less than, or equal to. Again, this might be a little bit of a review from years past, so maybe it'll be easy to us. So let's start with that review. Here are the symbols right here that we're going to be using to compare numbers. We have our greater than, less than, and equal to. When the opening is facing the bigger number, we know that that means it is greater. So maybe in first grade, even up to third grade, you might have talked about when the shark has its mouth open and the shark eats that bigger number. So here, let's take a look at an example. We know that the opening here, or the shark's mouth, is facing the 5, which means that 5 is greater than 2. Let's take a look now here when we're talking about less than. When a number is, when the symbol's point is facing the number, like right here, we have that point. Let me draw a little arrow. When we have that point right here facing a number, we know that that means that this number is less than. So here, our example shows that 7 is greater than 4, or you can say that 4 is less than 7. If we were to look up here, we could say that 2 is less than 5. So that's how we know greater than or less than. If we see the equal sign, we know that the numbers are of the same value. So for example, 15 equals 15. So whenever you see the same number on both sides of the equation, or of the numbers that you're comparing, you know that they're going to be equal. So let's try this now with decimals. So there are 3 steps that we need to follow when comparing decimals. So I want you guys to write down these steps in your journal. So if you want to pause the video, that might be a good idea to write down these 3 steps. We'll also have a poster in the room that we can refer to when solving these problems. So let's take a look at step 1. Your very first step, and this is so important, is that we line up the decimals. We have to start by looking at our number all the way to the left. So in this case, I highlighted in red for us because the number 3 is our number all the way to the left. And here we have our decimals lined up perfectly. And we're going to start by comparing the digits of the same place value. So we're going to look at our number to the left, which is the ones place, and compare. We have a 3 and a 3 here, which means that they're the same value. So that's where we go to step 2, and we need to find the first place where the digits are different. So in our ones place, we see the numbers are the same, 3 and 3. So now let's go to our next place, which is our 10th place. So in our 10th place, we have a 5 and a 4. And that's the first time that we see that our digits are different because we want to read it from left to right. So now that we have 2 different digits, we go to step 3, which is to compare. We know that 5 is greater than 4. 5 is obviously a bigger number than 4, so that means that 5/10 is going to be greater than 4/10, which is the value of these 2 numbers highlighted in red here. Which also means that 3 and 576 thousandths, our first number, is greater than 3 and 432 thousandths. And there we go, we have our answer. So our final answer, we would write the numbers fully. So we would have 3 and 576 thousandths is greater than 3 and 432 thousandths. All right, let's try another example together. We're going to compare the 2 numbers by writing in greater than, less than, or equal to. So first step that we have to follow for number 1, I'm going to do this right over to the side and I'm going to pick a different color. Let's go red. So we have 4 and 903 thousandths and 4 and 909 thousandths. If you can tell just by looking at this which number is greater, that's awesome, but we still want to write out every step. So our first step is to line up the decimals. So I have 4 and 903 thousandths lined up with 4 and 909 thousandths. I want you to write down why you think it's important to line up the decimals. Go ahead and write that in for me and click next when you're ready. All right. So it is very, very important to line up the decimals here because that's going to show us which numbers are in the same place and which numbers have the same, same place value as each other. So we did step 1. So we lined up our decimals. Now we need to start with the number all the way to the left, which is 4. And we notice that the 4 is in both ones places. So our very first numbers that we're looking at are the same. So we go to step 2, and we need to find the first number, the first two numbers that are going to be different. So we start on our left, and we have 2 4s. Oh, got to go to the next one. In our tens place, we have 2 9s. So we have to keep going. In our hundredths place, we have 2 zeros. So we have to keep going. But in our thousands place, we have 2 different numbers. We have a 3 and a 9, which means that now we can compare. And we know that 9 is greater than 3, which means that 4 and 909 thousandths is greater than 4 and 903 thousandths. There we go. All right, let's take a look at number 2 here. We're going to take our first step, change the color. I'm going to line up my decimals. 6 and 417 thousandths lined up with 6 and 423 thousandths. I go to my first step, I look at the number all the way to the left, and in my ones place I see 2 6s. So I go on to step 2, and I'm going to look at the next number. Both 4s. I go to my hundredths place and I see a 1 and a 2. So there's my first pair of numbers that's different. I'm going to bold them there just so we remember what 2 we're comparing. Alright, so we have a 1 and a 2, and we know that 2 is greater than 1, which means this number is going to be greater. So I'm going to write it out over here. 6 and 423 thousandths is greater than 6 and 417 thousandths. Alright, I want you guys to go ahead and try this one on your own. Compare the 2 numbers, write in greater than, less than, or equal to with your answers. Click next when you're ready. Alright, you should have followed the same steps that we did before, which is to first start by lining up the decimals. 5 and 413 lined up with 2. Alright, so first we line up our 2 decimals. See how they're perfectly aligned? We start with our number to the left. We have 2 5s, so we go to step 2 and we find the first place value that is 2 different numbers. And just like in our last one, we have a 2 and a 1 that we're comparing, and we know that 2 is greater than 1, which means that we would put in, sorry about that, we would say 5 and 422 thousandths is greater than 5 and 413 thousandths. Alright, I want you guys to try this one and click next when you're ready. Again, you're writing in greater than, less than, or equal to. Alright, this one should have been easy. We could have lined this up, or you could have just kind of looked at it and said, hey, I know that these are the same, this is the same exact number on this side as it is on this side, so I know that when I compare, they're going to be completely equal. If you did the steps, that's awesome because that's good practice just to continue on those steps. We would have 1 and 303 thousandths compared to 1 and 303 thousandths. We'd start to the left and we would see we have 2 1s here. We have 3s in our tenths place, 0s in our hundredths place, and 3s in our thousandths place, so they're both the exact same number, which means they are of equal value. Alright, great job guys. We're going to continue on with this lesson today.